Hello, my name is Jennifer Curry, and I'm going to be walking through this PowerPoint on professional presentation guidelines. All right, before you ever begin a presentation, you're going to have to organize your materials and decide what it is that you need to present. So you may have data, you may have graphics, you may have pictures, and you may have content that you want to share. But deciding what is relevant to share is really important before you ever get started putting together your presentation. The first thing I always say is know who your audience is. You want to understand who will be in the room when you share your presentation. Will it be people who are in your professional field? Will it be people who are in the public, people from outside your field? So you want to understand who's going to be in the room. You want to know their background and their expertise, and you want to tailor your content for them. So if they have interest in what you're doing or knowledge about what you're doing, that's really important. You don't want to assume that everyone is a firefighter. And do not assume that people understand the technical content, even if they are a firefighter. They may have a level of experience that is less than yours, and they may not understand the type of firefighting you specifically have been doing. State your objective. You may have multiple objectives that you plan to address within the content of your presentation. I tell people try to have no more than 3 because that's a lot for people to understand in one presentation, especially if the presentation is going to be less than 20 minutes. So what exactly do you want people to walk away with? What are the ideas or concepts that you want them to understand by the end of your presentation? Clarify your main message or takeaway, and then you can start to build your presentation from there. Organize your content. The best way to do this is to start with an outline. You want to structure your presentation logically, starting from the beginning, and make sure you have flow. If you do an outline, you'll be able to move parts of the presentation around. You want to create visual aids. So you want to have slides that you design using such tools as PowerPoint, Prezi, or Canva. And Alex will put some different links in the below so that you can see what we're talking about there. And if you're not sure how to use those, she'll actually have some videos that can link for you so that you can learn a little bit more about those tools. You want to use a clean and professional template. Sometimes I see people using way too many words, and they might have really crazy fonts or colors. Simple and clean is better. You want to make sure that people can see a few words, but not have every word written on the template, because if you do, you're going to tend to want to read those. So not to use too much text. Consistency. Maintain uniform fonts. You don't want to have Times New Roman on one slide and then on the other slide have Arial. You want to try to use a clean, consistent font throughout and using the same colors throughout the slides. So we don't have a blue slide followed by a yellow slide followed by a green slide. Your pictures should be relevant to your presentation. I've seen people use pictures throughout my career that did not make sense. So maybe you're on a page where you're talking about a difficult time for you in firefighting, and then you have pictures of storms and maybe things like this that seem relevant to you, but it can actually confuse your audience. So only use pictures that are truly relevant. And if you're not sure that they make sense, then ask somebody else to look at them. We don't need to see pictures of children eating ice cream or elephants holding balloons or anything like that that may not be really relevant to firefighting. So try to think through what types of pictures really make sense, and they should connect to the content that you have on that particular slide. Use them judiciously is what I always say. So you want to engage your audience. This could include asking people questions at the beginning of your presentation. It could include taking a poll or having other interactive elements to engage the audience. I cannot say enough how important it is to actually rehearse. A lot of times people think, well, I'll just walk through it in my mind or I'll read through it a couple of times, but actually standing up and walking through your presentation gives you the opportunity to talk it out and to think about how certain aspects actually sound out loud. Giving yourself a chance to actually talk through a particular story you want to tell or to talk about a particular piece of data you collected will give you a chance to think through how you want to present those items. Now, in your presentation at the end, you may have an opportunity to seek feedback or people may just give it to you. So you want to present to peers and then ask for constructive criticism even when you're rehearsing. When you do that, it gives you a chance to see how the feedback is going to feel for you and to have the opportunity to think about, what's it going to be like to get feedback? And is there some feedback I might not be anticipating that I could receive even in my presentation? And how will I handle that feedback? So you want to take feedback that you get when you rehearse and adjust your presentation if you can. So if somebody gives you feedback that, hey, I was really confused when you gave information on the data. I didn't understand the graphics. Then maybe you can change your graphics or do a better job of explaining what they mean. You want to dress professionally. You want to wear either your uniform or some dress clothes. Don't assume that coming in your, regular street clothes is going to be okay. When you dress in your uniform or in presentation style clothing, people will assume that you know what you're talking about, and they're going to assume it's a kind of a logical connection that you're prepared. So you want to always come in dressed professionally. Your body language, you want to exude confidence. You want to have good posture. You want to make appropriate eye contact and use appropriate gestures. So you don't want to just stand the whole time necessarily behind a podium. If you can, you want to try to walk around a little bit. You want to talk to different people in the audience. So you want to be looking at other people. You want to gesture appropriately, trying to talk in big ways with your hands and wave them around and pointing at people, but just nodding is fine, or, looking around with your face. That's okay. You want to vary your tone and your pace. Speak slowly so people can hear you and enunciate your words. And you want to avoid colloquialisms or things that everybody might not understand. So if you say something that you would understand, maybe that sounds funny or a joke to you, but everybody wouldn't get, then probably it's best to leave it out. And avoid cussing. Sometimes people say something and it just kind of rolls off the tongue, but this is why practicing or rehearsing is very important. You don't want to say something that might come across as offensive to somebody in your audience. So again, you want to engage, ask questions, maybe even questions that are just meant to be thought-provoking or rhetorical. Telling a personal story can help. A personal story, especially that has an element of interest for you about why you became interested in your topic or research. Be mindful of the time. If you're limited to 15 minutes, don't go over. The audience will be waiting for this to end, and they won't be waiting in a mean way, but if you start to go over by 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they may start to check out. All right, questions and answers. You should prepare for potential questions and challenges. So people may start to ask you questions like, did you ever think about this? Or how come you didn't look at this? And when they say that, try to remain calm and you can actually think about why they may be asking the question that they're asking you. One of the things I always say is instead of becoming defensive, you can always say something like this. Thank you. That's great feedback. I did not have the chance to look at all data. I had to pick a research question that was doable in the amount of time I had. However, I think your feedback's great. I would love to do that maybe in a future research study. So you can always address people's questions in that sort of way, especially if they're asking why you didn't do more. So just reminding people that you could only do so much, but that possibly in the future you could do the thing that they're questioning. You want to listen carefully to questions. And if you don't know the answer, then respond honestly. That's something I haven't thought of before. I think you're bringing up a great point. Don't make up an answer. If you think that you do know the answer to what they're asking, then say, yes, actually, I did find your question in the literature. It wasn't part of my study, but here's what somebody else found. And then that way you can address their question. And if somebody asks a question and you don't quite know what they mean, you can say, I'm sorry, I'm a little unclear. Would you mind asking your question in a different way? I want to make sure I'm addressing what you're actually asking. Remember, the main thing is to stay calm. Some people may ask you for specific information or resources. You can always share your slides. You can also maybe share any supplementary materials. So for example, you may have pulled articles or websites that are in your presentation. Make sure you share those if people ask for them. You can also follow up if people have questions and you say, listen, I'm not really sure the answer to that, but I'll look it up and I'll get back to you. Then make sure that you do. Offer to discuss your research or your presentation further or to collaborate on related topics, especially if they're of interest to you. And then let your audience members know if they want to have further conversations that you're open and available for that. Okay, this is the end of that presentation. Make sure that you thank people for coming, just like I'm about to thank you. Thank you for listening. And make sure that you tell people that, that their participation was really appreciated. Good luck.